Lieutenant Diane Mourglia-Swerdlow with another edition of Healthy Living for Expansions.com. Today I am going to show you how to easily roast a turkey, because a lot of people feel intimidated simply from the size, and it's nothing to be intimidated by. So I want you to look what I have here. This is my turkey, and this is about a 25 to 26 pounder. It's a big one, and I usually recommend the bigger the turkey that you can get, the better, because most of turkey is a bone. And so after you get to 15, 16 pounds, you're really buying mostly bone. So if you want the meat, you need to go bigger rather than smaller. So that's kind of a little misnomer that people don't realize. Now I've already taken it out because I wanted to show you. The legs usually come wrapped up like this in a piece of wire. So what I do is I take my legs out of the wire, and then the wire is like a clip. And so you're going to reach in here and you squeeze the wire together, which pulls it out, and then you just remove it. And inside the body cavity, you're going to find a turkey neck. So I'm going to take that out for later roasting. Or actually put in, I'm going to put it in here because I'm going to use that to make some turkey stock. And then if you have a pop-up timer, I take that out because you're not going to use it. And in the back here, you also want to lift the tail because you're going to find a bag of innards. This is your turkey heart, your gizzard, your liver. Let's see, this is your heart. You can see it's kind of round. That's full of CoQ10 if you want to eat it. And let's see what else is in the bag. Okay, this is your gizzard. That's going to be very hard. And there's only a little bit of liver in here. So I put all of that in the pot with some water, and I just boil that up for my soup stock. And sometimes people in my household want to eat it, sometimes they don't. So, but be sure you pull that out of the back end, otherwise you're going to be cooking the bag. Inside the turkey, I put a few ribs of celery. Remember what I told you before. This is the stock. This whole thing is the stock. Each individual piece is called a rib. So I'm putting some ribs inside the body cavity. And then I'm going to take some onions and put that inside. And if you want, you can put fresh herbs in there. You know, I don't really do that, but you can do whatever you want. Now, here's a little secret that I've learned over the years. This is the breast. I mean, it's laying down, and you've done all this, and you've taken the legs out. This is the breast. The breast is usually the driest bit of meat within the turkey. So what I do when I roast it is I turn the turkey upside down, because on the back side are the legs and the thighs, and that allows the juices to, I'm sorry, the legs are now down here obviously, but anyway, that makes the juices from the top of the turkey go down into the breast, and I find I have a juicier turkey. I also prefer to get a fresh turkey if I can versus a frozen turkey. Even if I buy a fresh turkey and put it in my freezer for a while, at least I feel like it's not been sitting in somebody's freezer for, maybe a year or two. I don't know. Anyway, so I turn it over. I put the wings over my roaster. Now this lifts up and down. And this is a really nice roasting pan if you're going to make a lot of turkeys. I highly suggest you get one. I used to use the throwaway disposable aluminum roasting pans, and one year when Stewart was putting it in the oven for me, the thing collapsed, even though I had it sitting on a cookie sheet for extra support, a baking sheet, and he caught the turkey in his hands and saved the dinner, but he wasn't too happy. So he went right out and bought me this roasting pan for my next turkey, which I've appreciated ever since. So here we go. Now, another thing that, if you like crispy skin, which we do, you set it out in your refrigerator if you have time for a couple of days to allow it to dry out to make your skin crispy. Wash my hands a second here. There's Natasha talking to Stewart.
Natasha.
Because I guess she wants some turkey.
Sit down. That's a good girl. Are you going to behave yourself today? Are you going to behave? No, you're not going to behave? Oh, that's a good girl.
All right. So back to our turkey. So what I do is take a little bit of olive oil, and you're going to just kind of put it over the top and rub that on. And I like to spread the wings out. Now, the part of the issue when you have a turkey is getting the joint meat done, which is here. These are the legs, and this is the thigh. And oftentimes in here, it's not done enough, and that has happened to me. What I will show you as we get closer to cooking the turkey, how to make sure that your turkey is done without using that little pop-up timer, because again, it can be a little bit intimidating because it's such a big bird. And then I have a variety of seasonings. You can use whatever seasonings you like. Again, fresh seasonings can go in. I have mostly the dried seasoning. Here's my black pepper, which is a staple in my kitchen, and I just put a little bit of that over the top. Okay, and then I have just a tiny bit of basil. I don't use too much, but a little bit. And I have thyme. I like that for a poultry seasoning, so I use a little bit more. And you can kind of help smear it wherever you want it to go. A little bit of sage. This is rubbed sage. I like that for my poultry. And again, you can put some of this inside of your turkey if you want, or the fresh. And this, as the turkey cooks, it will make the drippings or the juices down to the bottom of your pan, which eventually I'll show you how to put that together to make some gravy as well. And then the last one, I have some crushed rosemary. And put that on top. And of course, the nice thing about when you bake or roast a turkey, it is going to really make your house smell nice. A little bit more on there. Okay, so that's what I do. You know, people do all kinds of things. They make making a turkey really complicated, but in my opinion, it's the simpler the better. So with that done, I'm very fortunate because Stewart actually found me a 2-oven stove. So, and the lower oven is where I'm going to bake my turkey. I'll have the top turkey for other things. So I'm going to have him put it in because it's heavy. So here we go.
Do I need gloves?
No, I don't think so.
Not hot in there.
It's hot, but I mean, it's not going to hurt you. The lower rack sometimes falls out, so I have to be careful. And it goes. Alright, and try to get that as best as you can in the middle of your oven for even baking. I have it on 275. Now for a turkey this size, I'm going to roast it somewhere around 4 to 5 hours. And we'll check it a couple of times so you can see how it's coming. So we'll continue until we get it through to the end, so you know how to make a turkey, make your gravy, and also how to cut it up once it's out of the oven. Very easy. Okay, let's take a look at the turkey and see how it's doing. It's been in here cooking for a couple of hours. Now, remember what I told you, my racks have a tendency to bend a little bit. But I'm going to move it out here. I want to check to see how tender the joints are. So that's getting tender. Grab the leg here, and it's still a little tight in there. And it has to be really loose in order for it to be done, so it's probably still got a good hour or so to go. I'm going to raise the heat up a little bit. It was up to probably about 350. Remember, we started out on 275, so let's raise it up just a little bit. We got my top oven going too, because I have things in there. And as you remember, we put the turkey innards in here, and they're kind of gently simmering away. Now as your water goes down, you can add a little bit more, so you keep it covered a little bit. And also if you want to flavor your water, you can do that too for a broth that you're going to use it for later. So it's up to you. So while that's going on, we're going to make the stuffing, what I call stuffing or dressing. Now remember I showed you before that this is a stalk of celery versus a rib. And what I did was I took another stalk and I cut off the bottom, like that. Okay, and then I peeled off the ribs, and of course I always wash and soak everything in my hydrogen peroxide water. But I went ahead and I cut up most of it and put it here in the bottom of my bowl. And when you use the stock, you use everything, including the leaves, because there's a lot of good nutrition in there. But I left out a couple of the ribs to show you how easy it is to cut it up. So once you chop off, this had some bad stuff at the beginning. So I just cut it in 2, maybe 3, depending on how small you want your pieces. And then I take my whole stock and I just cut it up into little pieces. So it just takes about 5 minutes, if that, to do a whole stock. And then I put it in my bowl. Okay, that just goes in my bowl. And then I have, along with this stock, I have about 3 onions in there. I'm going to chop this one up, but before I do that, I have a cube of butter, and you can also use olive oil, so it'll be about a half a cup of olive oil. I'm going to put it in my pan and let it melt. I use butter because I happen to like the flavor that the butter gives. But that's up to you. And well, that's melting. We'll go back to our chopping. And I usually do an onion at a time, or you can put it through a food processor. It's up to you, but I like the smaller pieces. And as I said, I have 3 onions in there already. This will be onion number 4. And if you want to make it into smaller pieces, you just take your knife from the top, because if you grab it incorrectly, your fingers will go under the blade. So be sure you can hold it like this, or from the top, but your fingers could slip. So I personally prefer like this. And we just chop it up a little. Now you can add other vegetables. Today I'm just going to have in the celery and the onion. Some days I add in Brussels sprouts. You could put in leafy greens that are finely chopped, peas, anything that you like. Now also, if you want, you can put in bread. I do mine without bread because it keeps it on the lower carb end of it. And maybe I want other things, for example, my potato pie or sweet potatoes. Or maybe I want to make some of my own kind of rolls on the side. So it just kind of depends on, what your dietary needs are, what you do. So as my butter is melting over here, I'm going to go ahead and put in this onion, along with everything else that's in my bowl. And remember, this is going to cook down a little, plus remember I have a really big turkey cooking in the oven. So we're going to use quite a bit of stuffing. I was raised to call it dressing on the West Coast, I guess. We're going to mix up the butter. And then I have a couple little pieces of butter I'm going to throw in here. And it's up to you again how much you want to use, but these are from other things. And so I'm going to use up my little dribs and drabs. I'll put that in there as well. And then I'm going to season it however I like. So I happen to like basically the same kind of poultry seasonings that I put on the turkey. And that helps to keep everything kind of blended together as far as flavoring. So I have my organic black pepper. And I'll put in probably a couple teaspoons, pepper. And I have a little bit of basil. Remember, I didn't put much of that in the turkey. I'm not going to put much of it in my stuffing. I have crushed rosemary. We'll put in a couple teaspoons of that. And the smell is really nice if you could only smell it. I have rubbed sage. That's going to go in there. A couple teaspoons of that. And probably a good tablespoon of thyme, which is probably my best poultry spice that I like. And I also have some white onion granules, I guess you would call it. It's not the powder. I'm going to put in a tablespoon or 2 of that. And some salt. Good quality sea salt. I'll do about a tablespoon of that as well. Now with butter, the butter I use is the salted. Some people prefer unsalted. And again, if you have olive oil, you might want to vary how much of the salt that you put in according to your own taste. Of course, there's a chunk of butter, and all you do is stir this around. The idea is your vegetables will pick up the seasoning. It will give you a little bit of crunch, additional seasoning for your turkey. And then when we do the gravy, you'll see we're going to use basically the same seasonings again. It's going to kind of blend your dinner together, in my opinion. That's the way my family likes it. But as you cook, you learn to experiment and find out what people that you're feeding, including yourself, actually like. You can also mix your butter and olive oil if you want, which I do sometimes. I'm thinking about doing right now because it looks a little bit dry for everything I have in here. So, there's a little piece of butter that hasn't melted yet, but I like to get everything well coated. Because that's what's going to hold the seasoning to your vegetables. Since I have my olive oil sitting out here, I'm going to go ahead and put in a couple more tablespoons. I have it in my can. This can's getting down to the bottom. There we go. Or you can add more butter. You know, it just depends on, again, what you like. Okay, you can see how this is starting to cook down. And again, it's how you like your vegetables. I happen to like mine just a little bit on the crunchy side. So I'm just cooking it down and kind of making it a bit translucent. But I want it to maintain some of its crunch. And you can, some people even like to put nuts. You can put sausage in here if you like. Bacon, you know, a variety of meats. Of course, you hear people with oyster stuffing. It's not really my thing, but some people like that. But you can see it does cook down. And as it cooks down, I get your flavoring all the way through. And then once I have it where I want it, which I think is pretty good, then I'm going to put it in a bowl and cover it with a piece of foil. And because it's warm, it will continue to heat through and cook it a little bit. Okay. So I think this is to a good place. I'm going to put it into the bowl, cover it with a piece of foil, and then it'll be waiting for when the turkey comes out. Once the turkey comes out, we're going to let it sit for a few minutes, and also we will have some gravy to make. So we want to try and keep things as warm as we can. I'm going to leave the seasoning and spices in here. I'm not going to clean the pan for the moment. And also put some foil, and then this will be done. Okay, the turkey's been cooking quite a while, so I'm going to check on, oh my, look how beautiful it looks. Now remember I told you about my racks, and they have a tendency to, it's a heavy turkey. You can see how loose the joint is here? It's very loose, so that means it's done. Then I'm going to check the leg, and I have a hold of it with my hot mat, and you can see it's starting to separate. When you feel it, you'll know. So I'll show you when I take it out. So Stuart's going to take it out for me. I'm going to turn the oven off. Okay, my dear?
I'm very scared. I'm very nervous.
Just set it right up there.
That's a big fat turkey.
Yes, it is.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So, now again, I want you to see how loose the joint is. And what I have over here, before I take it apart, I'm going to let it sit for about 15 minutes because it lets the juices move through it. But if we turn it this way, you can also see how loose this leg is. And when I take it off, as I said, I'll let it sit because it will continue to cook for a few minutes. Now these are the neck pieces, so I'm going to move this out of our way as well. So while the turkey is sitting, I'm going to actually move it over here so I can work on the gravy. So remember what I told you, it's got a movable rack in it. This is going over here. It's got all the juices left in the bottom of my pan. I'm going to show you how to make some gravy. And the pan is hot. Remember, it just came out of the oven. So what I do sometimes is I just put a hot mat around it because I have accidentally grabbed something right out of the oven, and you have a lovely little burn if you do that. So this will be a good reminder. So what I do is I stir the juices around and anything else, all the drippings, and it looks like some of the onion and the celery came out, which is fine. I have it positioned over 2 burners. So I'm just going to turn this on, and if you have a foil pan, you can actually make your gravy right in there too, depending on, you just don't want your heat too high, you don't want to burn it up. Or you can pour it into another pan, but this works really well for me. And I'm going to put in, so I'm going to bring it to a boil actually. So, I turn both my burners on high. And I'm basically going to do what I've done with everything else as far as the seasoning goes. It's kind of the same seasonings. See, it's coming to a boil. Now I have in here flour. And I have shown you before how I make my flour from my buckwheat, which is really an herb. Let's keep my carbs down, and I'm just going to put in about 4 tablespoons. This is your thickener. Now you can also use arrowroot, which I have done. Use arrowroot. You want to dissolve it first in a glass of cool water, and then you pour it in. Bit by bit, it helps your gravy from being lumpy. So you can see it's kind of thickening there in the middle. And then I'm going to start putting my seasonings in. Again, just a little bit of the basil. So I don't have much on the turkey a lot of time because that's the one I have the most of. So just dump in a couple tablespoons or so of thyme. I'm going to turn this down. It doesn't need to be at a rolling boil. I have my black pepper. Put in a couple teaspoons of the black pepper. I have my rosemary. A couple teaspoons of that. More black pepper. I have the sage. I'll put in a couple teaspoons of that. And my sea salt. And probably a good couple teaspoons of that. And again, you can change the seasonings depending on what you like or don't like. And then, of course, I have my granulated onion. You can also put garlic in if you like that. Sometimes I do, depending on how I feel. A couple tablespoons of that. Now everything is boiling, so we're going to boil it all up together to thicken your gravy and to season it. Now, once you have the main part of your gravy worked in, you can also add other things. Sometimes people like to add in a cup of red wine or white wine to give it that flavoring. That's up to you. I usually do a little bit of steam distilled water, or I will go and use the broth from the innards that you saw me cooking over there. So a lot of different ways to extend your gravy. Now there is also a lot of fat that comes out of a turkey when you cook it, which it will eventually separate out after it's chilled. And I've tried a variety of ways to take it off, and I've not been successful, so I just let it stay in there and do its thing. I've added, you can add butter in there anyway if you want the seasoning or the spice. Then I'm going to add in some steam distilled water. Couple cups. You can also put mushrooms in here if you like that. I mean, there's so many things that you can do. As you can see, and it's not a real thick gravy. If you put in more of the flour or more arrowroot, you can make it thicker. That's your choice and up to you. And as I said, for me, one of my goals is to keep things on the lower carb side, and after it cools, it will thicken up. But anyway, it makes a really nice gravy. You can see, and then I use just a big measuring cup. I'm going to use one of my bigger measuring cups here, and I'm going to pour it in. and put a ladle in it, and they'll be ready to go with the turkey in a minute. So, set that aside. And remember, I put these hot meds on. It's so easy just to forget and grab a hot pan. And it is a terrible thing to do. So we're just going to pour that all in there. And there's still more drippings on the bottom, so if you want, you can put a little bit more water, or again, white wine in there. You got all your drippings and all your seasoning. And just keep building it in there. And also, it makes your pan easier to clean when you get that far, because you don't have all the drippings stuck to the bottom. So let's just put that in there. Okay. I'm going to set the pan aside because, as I said, it's very hot. And you can see down here how that the fat from the turkey starts to come to the top. And I've tried those pitchers that they say they separate the fat. It doesn't work for me. So I usually just put a ladle in and we just pull up from the bottom when I get to serving the gravy when it's hot like this. And of course, whatever's left, when it gets cold, that will turn hard and I can just pull it off the top. Okay, let's move this out of the way and come over to the turkey itself. Here's the innards that we talked about. Now I have two platters here, one for dark meat, one for light meat. And what I'm going to do, remember this is the wing, and because it's nice and tender, see how it just falls right out of the turkey like that? It goes over here. And this one, now my roasting rack is still hot, so you have to be careful. And that goes over there. And watch the leg. Let's take this, oops, it's got a lot of turkey juice in it, as you can see. And I have it set on a baking sheet. Oops. Grab another mat. So this one's going to come off. See, there's your leg and your thigh. It's all attached because it's nice and done. It's so easy to do. Move it over here and the same thing. We just pull this off. You see how nice that comes off? Very easy to do once you've done it. And as I said, cooking a turkey for the first time can be a little bit intimidating, just simply because it's a big bird. And I'll put that on this tray. You have to be careful it doesn't fall on the floor. Now, remember all that nice skin we talked about. If your family or you like to eat it, you want to take it out while it's still hot. And that's when it's crispy. And I just lay it over the top. And that will help keep the meat warm while you're doing anything else that you want to do. And there's still a lot of dark meat on the back. And lay the skin. I have to get a knife because I want to be sure that we keep the crispy skin for those who like crispy skin. Okay, and put it there. This is the rest of the wing. I'm going to leave it attached. This meat, you can see, will easily come off the bone. It's nice dark meat. Dark meat has more fat in it, which is my favorite. And you can, there's little pieces, you'll feel it. Now when I'm done, I've shown you how to do turkey, turkey stock. So this will go into making my turkey stock. Now I need to turn it over so I can get to the white meat, and this is very hot. So see if I can do it. This will break apart. This is the back part of the turkey. And let's see if I can take it off now. Yeah, there we go. Okay, and this I will put in my soup pot for making stock. You can see it just rips off very easily. And there's all the stuff we put inside of it earlier. It's very tender. The turkey is just falling apart on me, which is okay. It's a good thing. When there's more broth coming out, I can either add that to my gravy, I can use that for my soup stock. This skin, as you can see, is on the bottom. It's not as crispy, but it's still nice and browned. So this skin is also going to come off. See all the juice is coming out. These are the two breasts. You have one on each side. And again, it's very easy to cut. You want to take the skin off, or you can leave it on, but I was going to try and show it to you, but it may not work so well. Take off the crispy skin, and right down the back, just like a big chicken, is a bone. So you can cut down the side of the breast going this way, and if we start slicing like this, you're going to get your breast meat, which is just comes right off. And you just start slicing. And you go down one side and slice, and you can take the whole breast off. It's very hot, but I wanted you to see how it's done. And then you can go to the other side and take the other breast off. So it's very easy to do. So anyway, that's how you cook a turkey. That's how you slice it apart. It's easy. I hope you enjoy it, and I hope you don't feel intimidated and you do one of your own very soon. Thank you for joining me, Diane Mourglia-Swerdlow, another edition of Healthy Living for Expansions.com.